John Belcher, Law Offices of John Belcher. Today, we're going to have an insightful commentary as we look at the fallout from the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. And we're going to identify the dumbest and most misguided attorneys in the case. And they may not be who you think they are. Is it Johnny Depp's attorney? She won the case. And in a big surprise, a lot of legal experts thought it couldn't be done, but it was an overwhelming victory for her. There are 1 million signatures on a petition to have her take Amber Heard's place for Aquaman. So it's not her. Well, how about Amber Heard's attorneys? Well, they lost. Most certainly, they didn't get a win, but they were pushing uphill one of the most hated individuals in modern times, someone with a popularity index below Putin's. And isn't that what juries are at a certain level? By involving the community, it shows how the community feels about a particular case. They're not the dumbest attorneys. They're not the most misguided attorneys. They did their best. Who are the misguided and awful attorneys in this case? Well, I'm going to name them by name, and they're not who you think they are. This case began when Amber Heard published an op-ed piece in the Washington Post. And she was selected by the American Civil Liberties Union as, quote, the ambassador for women's rights with a focus on gender-based violence. Now, I'd like to ask you to take a moment and think carefully about the kind of vetting the American Civil Liberties Union did before appointing Amber Heard to this particular position. Look at the kind of person that she was proven to be. And frankly, there are a number of people that deal with domestic violence on a daily basis that are horrified at the outcome here, in that it could have repercussions, in that victims will be less likely to come forward. And let's just call out the ACLU. Shame on that organization for picking such a crummy ambassador of women's rights with a focus on gender-based violence. Amber Heard was a violent person who was demeaning and physically abusive to Johnny Depp, and yet was selected by the ACLU to be an ambassador. And they timed it for the release of Aquaman and wanted to use it to up their profile. It gets worse. She told them she would pay them $3.5 million. She bought the ambassadorship, and she didn't pay all of it. In fact, what was paid was some from her and some from her ex-boyfriend, Elon Musk. Now, the Amber Heard donation to purchase an ambassadorship from a nonprofit harkens back to another very, very poor group of decisions made by the Los Angeles chapter of the NAACP. Donald Sterling, who is probably the most famous racist in the last 50 years in Los Angeles, and in fact was found to have methodically discriminated against Blacks and other minorities in renting in the housing that he owned, and was forced to pay a $2.765 million fine for his racist activities. The NAACP in 2009 had sold him a Lifetime Achievement Award. And in 2014, they were about to bestow another one, which he had purchased, when the fine and the findings of discrimination were published. And at that point, the NAACP not only rescinded, but said, we're going to give back the money that you had contributed to us. It's a sad day for our society when charities, which supposedly uphold the interest of victims and minorities, are engaged in pay to play, particularly when they don't vet. It gets worse. Amber Heard is just an actor. Her job is to act, and she doesn't have legal training. So what does she do? She goes to the ACLU, which Ghost wrote the op-ed piece. And there are lawyers at the ACLU who knew or should have known better than to publish a defamatory article. They should have done their homework. In an email sent to Heard by Robin Schulman, a member of the communications team at the ACLU, she said she tried to shape Heard's, quote, fire and rage in a draft. Terrence Doherty, ACLU's general counsel and chief operating officer, also had fingerprints on the op-ed piece. Anthony Romero, the legal director, also was involved in looking at the op-ed piece before it was published. David Cole at the ACLU also weighed in. So here you have the ACLU and you have these lawyers, and they're ghostwriting a piece which is found to be defamatory and which is found to have caused $15 million in damages. And not only have they ghostwritten this defamatory piece, but they have selected an ambassador which injures the rights of domestic violence victims. Now, you're thinking, wow, this couldn't get any worse, could it? But it does. The ACLU came after Johnny Depp and said, boo-hoo. We had to be involved in going through our files and responding to subpoenas, and we had to be deposed for 16 hours. You need to pay us $86,000 for burdening us. Be careful what you initiate. A lot of times when you start a case, you wind up on the wrong side of it. And there can and should be a reckoning for the American Civil Liberties Union and the individuals I have named for what they have done. Who are the most misguided lawyers in this case? The ACLU lawyers. This is John Belcher, law offices of John Belcher. And frankly, when public interest law groups go forward in any action, they have a responsibility to the public and to the law to act with decency and integrity.